Hi everyone, we are getting started here in just a few minutes. We are so glad you're joining us here for our caregiver chats. I'm Lakeland Hogan, gerontologist and caregiver advocate at Home Instead Senior Care, and I'm joined here by Colleen. Colleen, I'll introduce you formally in just a bit, but give everyone a wave. We're so happy that you're here with us today. And we're happy that you all have joined us as well. We're streaming live on Facebook. We're also live on Zoom. And so you can see our beautiful faces. We're so excited that you've taken a little time out of your day to join us. We want to know, where are you joining us from? I am in Omaha, Nebraska. Colleen, where are you joining us from today?
I'm in Hastings, Minnesota.
Hastings, Minnesota. That's fantastic. So this is truly a nationwide chat and sometimes even a worldwide chat. We've had people join us from Canada and other countries throughout the world. So please comment in the chat box, or if you're on Facebook Live, comment below this Facebook Live feed and let us know where you're coming from, where you are listening today. You can also give us a like, a thumbs up, give us a little love. You can love this live chat, but you are joining live on Facebook or live on Zoom for Home Instead Senior Care's Caregiver Chats. And we have a great topic today. We're talking about becoming dementia friends, creating dementia-friendly communities. So in just a few minutes, we're going to dive into that topic. But we do have Kathy. She's joining us outside of Philadelphia. Welcome, Kathy. We have Leslie joining from Pleasant Prairie, Wyoming. That sounds like a lovely place, very pleasant. We have Fayetteville, Georgia. Anne's joining us from Toronto. I'm headed to Toronto in a few weeks, so that's very exciting. Again, it's truly a global chat that we have happening here, and we're so glad you've joined us. If you know of somebody who you think would benefit from listening to this chat, we would encourage you, if you're joining on Facebook, to comment below with the @ symbol and then that person's name, and it will notify them to join this live chat. But we're also going to record it, so you can always send the recording on at a later time to whoever you think would benefit, or if you want to go back and listen to it later, we'll have that recording available. So I think we've given people enough time to tune in, to join us. So I think we'll kick it off today for our caregiver chat. Again, my name is Lakeland Hogan. I am gerontologist and caregiver advocate at Home Instead Senior Care. And these caregiver chats are brought to you by Home Instead Senior Care, a network of locally owned and operated home care companies providing care and support to individuals living with Alzheimer's and other types of dementia and their caregivers in the home setting. To learn more, you can visit homeinstead.com. But just a few housekeeping items before we get started. If you're joining us on Zoom, we have muted your lines so that we can reduce that background noise. So we want you to be able to go about your day and also listen to the chat. So don't worry about making any noise on your end of things. But we do want to hear from you throughout the chat. So if you're joining us on Zoom, you have the Q&A box, the chat box. You can type in a question at any time. We're going to have a chat back and forth for a little bit, and then towards the end, we're going to take live questions. And if you're joining us on Facebook, you can just chat your questions below in the comments box, and we will get to as many of the questions as we can today as we go about our caregiver chats. And then you don't have to take notes. This is being recorded. We will post the recording out on our website. For those on Zoom, we'll email it back to you, and then we'll post it on Facebook. So again, you can watch it at a later date, forward it on to anyone who you feel might benefit from the chat. All right, so this month, did you know it is World Alzheimer's Month? And actually, on September 21st, just a couple days ago, was World Alzheimer's Day. And so the Alzheimer's Disease International Organization, they have led this effort with an international campaign that happens every September to raise awareness and challenge the stigma that surrounds dementia. And this year is actually the 8th year that they're doing this. It launched in 2012. Again, World Alzheimer's Day was just a few days ago, September 21st. And we're going to post the website link below, so you can go on the Alzheimer's Disease International website and look at all of the great tools and information resources they have surrounding World Alzheimer's Month and World Alzheimer's Day. And today, our topic really focuses around becoming a dementia friend. We know that when someone is receiving a dementia diagnosis, it impacts definitely the individual, but also the family members, their employer, neighbors, their community, those people that surround them. And understanding Alzheimer's disease and other forms of dementia can really help our communities at large better support those living with dementia. So today, again, we're going to be learning about Dementia Friends. And this great thing, the great thing about this initiative is that whether you've never heard of the disease or if you're actively providing care and support to someone living with dementia, this campaign, this opportunity to become a dementia friend can benefit us all. So here with me today is Colleen. Colleen, thank you so much for joining us. We're so happy to have you.
My pleasure.
Colleen has spent the last 2 decades of her career in aging services, helping communities understand, engage, and support older adults. She's a certified Dementia Friend champion and a master trainer she's a master trainer helping train other champions across the United States. And Colleen's work with Dementia Friends helped Minnesota become a dementia-friendly state. And Dementia Friends is a global movement that strives to create more dementia-friendly communities by changing the way people think, act, and talk about dementia. By helping everyone in the community understand what dementia is and how it affects people, each of us can make a difference for someone living with dementia. So, Colleen, wow, you come with a great wealth of knowledge and experience. So we are so excited to have you with us. And I would really love for you to just kind of kick us off by talking about, what is Dementia Friends? What is the program and what's your role within the program? If you could give us a little overview, that would be very helpful.
Sure. Thanks, Lakeland. Dementia Friends is a grassroots movement of friends and neighbors and grocery store clerks and bank tellers who get together to understand not the disease, but the person living with the disease, and figure out ways that we can better stay connected, support, and keep them engaged in our community. One of the things I learned in my training as a dementia champion is that 70% of the people currently living with a diagnosis of dementia are still in their home or their apartment. They're still in community. They're sitting next to us in our faith community. They're at the grocery store with us, in our banks with us. So knowing that, how can we keep them involved, keep them connected, and actually impact their life in a positive way?
That is fantastic, Colleen. 70%. That is a large number because we know that in the United States, there's well over 5 million people living with Alzheimer's or another type of dementia. So we think about 70% of those people are, in our communities, engaging with us. So you're right, this is so important and really speaks to the fact that, increasing awareness is important. So can you talk to us a little bit more about the why behind the awareness of dementia? What can we gain by being more aware of dementia and how it impacts people?
So a couple of things. There was a study released last week from Australia that surveyed people across 150 nations. It wasn't just an Australian or United States survey. And 2/3 of the people that responded said they thought that dementia was a normal part of aging. It's not. I know. And
Wow.
62% of the physicians that were surveyed said they didn't think there was anything they could do for a person who had dementia. So we have a long way to go in changing people's perceptions and fundamentally their understanding of dementia as a disease. So 1 out of 3 people over the age of 65 around the world will one day develop dementia. Well, that means that 2/3 will not. And that's the opportunity of Dementia Friends to engage those 2/3 and to better reach out to, these are their friends that are being diagnosed. And we can understand them and we can stay connected to them and we can empower them to be valued in our community.
Wow, those are some powerful statistics. Almost knocks the wind out of you. So you said about 2/3 of people think dementia is a normal part of aging, which
I know.
most certainly is not, as you just stated. And then what was that percentage of doctors that didn't think that there was anything they could do?
62% worldwide.
2% worldwide. Wow. And it's becoming more and more common. People are talking about how important a diagnosis is because it can help you get so many more supports and resources. So if our physicians, the ones who could be diagnosing, if they don't know about those resources, wow, there's a lot of people that are missing out on some very important support.
I agree. And we just need to change the conversation. But unless someone is out there saying, that's not true, it doesn't have to be like this, we can make life better for a person living with dementia. Wow, that's mind blowing.
It is. Well, and I think sometimes there's so many misconceptions about dementia that make people maybe a little fearful to reach out to someone living with dementia, or hesitant to engage. Can you talk to me a little bit about those common misconceptions that are out there? Because I think the more we know about the misconceptions, the less of a misconception they become.
Good point. So one of the misconceptions is I don't want to go visit my friend because I'm afraid I will say something that will upset her. I don't want to make her feel bad. I don't want to make her feel angry. But if you simply understand what's going on, what she remembers, what she won't remember, and how to adjust your conversation to that, you can have a positive, meaningful relationship that not only is meaningful to you, but far more importantly, is meaningful to your friend.
That's a great point. Yeah, just having a little understanding of how where they're at. I think because we know that Alzheimer's disease and dementia is a progressive disease. If you're watching and dementia is a new term to you, it is a disease of the brain. So the brain is losing its ability to function in certain capacities, and over time that tends to get worse. So it's progressive. So it gets progressively worse over time. So if we can just understand kind of where is my friend or loved one at in that progression, how can I meet them where they are and still engage in a meaningful way, that can be so powerful in overcoming those misconceptions. Because I know that when we talk about dementia, there's a big emphasis on memory loss, but I don't think there's a big enough emphasis on what is not lost. I know we talked about that earlier, Colleen. Would you mind sharing a little bit more about that with those that are joining us today?
Sure. The most common symptom of dementia is memory loss, specifically recently learned information. But more specifically, as that disease progresses, a person will begin to lose the facts of their life. They will begin to lose names, dates, anniversaries, those kind of details of their life. Heaven forbid, the password to all of their websites will eventually be gone. But there are some things that do not go away. And one of the things that doesn't go away is their ability to read facial expressions, their ability to read tone of voice or a warm touch, or whatever was important to them all their life, whether it's their faith, whether it's music, whether it's the sound of someone speaking, those things that were important to them all of their lives will be important to them up until the very end. So even though they cannot articulate that as the disease progresses, those things continue to be important. So for instance, a friend comes over and has lunch, and maybe we go to a coffee shop and go out for coffee and then go to a flower shop. Later that afternoon, if I have dementia, I might forget the coffee shop and I might forget the flower shop, but I will remember that I'm connected. I will remember that people care about me. And that is one of the very last things a person with dementia loses. So now that you've learned what I call the secret sauce of Dementia Friends, then how much more engaged can you be in a conversation with someone you care about, who maybe will forget the details of the day, but will never forget the friendship.
I like that example. I think you're so right. They still, there's a famous quote, and I wish I remember who said it, but it says something about people will forget the things you do for them, but they won't forget the way that you make them feel. And I think,
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah.
That's exactly it.
I got to look that quote up so I can accurately quote it next time. But
I think I might as well.
but it does speak so beautifully to how we can still provide that meaning and importance and love and support to people living with dementia.
Right.
And I think we talked earlier, Colleen, about another misconception around dementia involves vision changes. Not everyone realizes that someone living with dementia, one of the symptoms is memory loss, but are there other things that happen kind of physiologically that could impact the way an individual can interact with their environment and those around them?
Sure. So a person living with dementia may very well lose their sense of depth of field. So if you walk into my home, I have these lovely honey hardwood floors, and in the middle of my living room, I have this burgundy 5x7 rug. But if you're a person living with dementia and you come to visit me, you may get to the edge of my rug and stop because it looks like a black hole that you might fall into. But now that I know that, if you come to visit me, whether I think you have dementia or not, when I invite you into my living room, I stand on that 5x7 rug. It's just that simple. Now you know it's safe. Conversely, if I invited you to my kitchen table, I have a white kitchen table and I will serve you on my white Corningware plates. And a person with Alzheimer's or dementia may just sit there. They don't want to look dumb, but they can't tell where the table ends and the plate begins. But again, simple understanding means that now I can just simply put a little placemat underneath that plate so you can easily tell the difference between the plate and the table. That's the simple kind of changes that Dementia Friends recommends.
Wow, that is so simple. Those little tiny things can make such a big difference and create a sense of security and safety for someone living with dementia. So those are some great tips. And I know that we'd also talked about numbers. How does somebody living with dementia understand numbers, or how does their understanding of numbers change as they progress through the disease?
Good question. So one of the parts of the brain that is affected by this disease as this disease progresses is the ability to recognize symbols. And whether we recognize it or not, a number is a symbol. 2 apples is a symbol. When we see that written, it's a symbol for this apple and this apple. Well, a person with Alzheimer's or dementia can lose the ability to recognize those symbols. And once you do that, then how do you understand addition or subtraction or, heaven forbid, multiplication? So a person living with dementia may not be able to balance their checkbook. They may owe a clerk $3.50 for a cup of coffee and hand them $40 thinking that they owe $35. Again, they don't want to say, I don't know what $3.50 means. So they just make their best guess and hand over that money. But if the clerk has been to a Dementia Friends training and understands that they just simply don't understand the numbers, then you just say, oh, let me take care of this, and hand them back the 37, 36, whatever the correct age is for that $40.
Yeah. That is really good, I think, to understand. I know when I do education on dementia, I talk about how another early warning sign is somebody who's starting to have issues with their finances. That's somebody starting to have issues balancing their checkbook. That might be an early sign that they have some sort of cognitive impairment. It might be a sign that families should get their loved one for a medical evaluation, because you're right, that those symbols can start to lose their meaning, or it might become more confusing. So that's such a great example. And you mentioned that businesses can engage in Dementia Friends training. Can you tell us more about that, Colleen? Because it sounded, at first, people might be thinking, oh, it's just for people living in the community, but our businesses are a big part of the community. So can you talk a little bit about how the program supports and educates businesses?
Certainly. So When I'm invited to do a Dementia Friends presentation at a specific business, I work to understand that business and then how they might relate to a person dealing with dementia. And so we target it that way. And whether it's a grocery clerk who simply needs to understand why a woman might not be able to find the cheese when she's looking at the lettuce, or whether we're talking about a banker who is seeing someone come in and withdrawing great amount of money when maybe really they usually only come in order and ask for $100 in cash. There are opportunities for us to understand and then support without making that first person feel less, without diminishing them.
That is such a great point. You know, there's different businesses that serve a different purpose in our community. So the fact that you're able to tailor it is great. And I know on the Dementia Friends website, there's some great short videos. So if you work within an organization that maybe isn't open to doing a full in-person dementia training, there's resources online that exist. Isn't that right, Colleen?
Right, exactly. So what if you're a bus driver and a woman comes on and suddenly she's standing there in front of you and doesn't remember where she's going? How can you help her get, number one, feel safe, and number two, get her to her destination? And so there are lots of little tricks and tips like that that are available in those short little videos.
And that website is just dementiafriends.org. Is that right?
Dementia Friends, well, so I get to it by Googling Dementia Friends. Sorry.
That's okay. Well, we'll make sure that we get the correct website in the comments below and to you all on Zoom so that you can go out to the website and check out these great training opportunities. And before we get to some questions, I just wanted to talk a little bit more about the term stigma, because as we celebrate World Alzheimer's Month and World Alzheimer's Day, one of the main reasons they started this campaign was to reduce the stigma. Can you talk a little bit about that, Colleen? Maybe what it means to have a stigma around dementia, and then how we can reduce that stigma or overcome it.
So, like, when we have come a long way in our understanding of what dementia is and what it is not, and I think we're doing a great job of pushing that out into our friends and our neighbors. But periodically I hear people say, well, they say she has Alzheimer's, but I think, it's just dementia. And so when we do Dementia Friends, we talk to people about push back against that dementia is a disease of the brain, that it is a disease that is progressive, will continue to impact that brain, and these people will continue to need our support. I had someone tell me once, well, she just let herself go. No, there is a disease that is eroding her brain a little bit at a time in several different areas, all at the same time. These people need our love and our understanding.
That is so true. I think that there's even just so many misunderstandings when it comes to the terminology. So we know that dementia is the overarching term, and there's different types. So Alzheimer's is one type of dementia, just like Lewy body is one type, frontal temporal dementia is one type, vascular dementia is one type. So even just a basic understanding of the terms can be helpful when we're talking out in public. And we're learning that, Alzheimer's disease, dementia, it doesn't discriminate against gender or race. We do know women tend to develop it a little more frequently than men, but just because somebody developed dementia, as you mentioned, it didn't mean that they let themselves go. It means that for some reason, there is a change happening in their brain, one which we would wish upon no one, because, it is challenging. But people, I think what is so beautiful about overcoming the stigma is people are living full lives with dementia because the people around them are supporting them, finding ways that they can engage in their communities and still contribute and be productive in society. So I think that is also another important part of overcoming stigma.
I agree.
Awesome. Well, this has been so great, Colleen, sharing about Dementia Friends. I would love, if you're open to it, for us to start taking some questions. So are you ready?
Sure, I'm happy to help.
Awesome. So if you have a question, we already have a few that are trickling in, but we would love to hear from you. If you're joining us on Zoom, you can type your questions into the Q&A box. You can also, on Facebook Live, type your questions into the comments below, and we will get to as many questions as we can here in the next 20 minutes or so. So our first question actually came to us ahead of time from Musa. The question is, has Dementia Friends began in North America, specifically in the Toronto area, and how can I become a dementia champion? So Colleen, can you speak a little bit to that?
So I obviously am part of Dementia Friends USA, and I just told you that if I was going to try and connect with it, I'd connect with Dementia Friends, Google Dementia Friends USA, and I would do the same thing for Canada. I know there is a Dementia Friends initiative in Canada, as there are in over 50 countries around the world. I love that. So I would just Google Dementia Friends Canada or Dementia Friends India or Dementia Friends Liberia, and I know there are Dementia Friends in all of those countries and many more.
That is fantastic. And we actually found a link to the Ontario Dementia Friends. And it seems like Canada, they have their various areas, and they all kind of have their own little separate initiatives happening. But you're right, it is in Canada. So we will post the link specific to Ontario in the comments below so that you can go out there. But I agree, you know, if you just kind of Google the various country and Dementia Friends, you will probably find where that initiative is kind of being spearheaded from. But the official website for Dementia Friends USA is dementiafriendsusa.org. And Colleen, on that website, from what I understand, you can search by state to see which state has a Dementia Friends initiative and how you can get involved.
Correct. And then the other part of Musa's question was, how do you become a dementia champion? Mm-hmm. And I became a Dementia Friends by attending an information session, and then asked to become a dementia champion and was invited to a supplemental training that was a longer training and a more in-depth training to become a dementia champion.
Fantastic. And I did the online version. I became a Dementia Friend by just doing the online version. So you can do that as well. If you don't have the opportunity to go in person, or if your state or city does not have an in-person option, you can definitely learn a lot through their online programming. And I got to print out my certificate and posted it on social media. You did the hashtags and all of that great stuff. So there's lots of opportunity to engage. So thank you for that question. We hope that that answer was helpful. And then our next question came in ahead of time too. It was from Ava. She kind of explains the situation that she's struggling with and hoping that we can offer up some advice. So she said that her mother and brother have had an increasingly strained relationship over the years. They don't get to see each other very often. And this causes family gatherings to be stressful, especially when her mom realizes who her brother is. She tends to become upset, and she still wants to take her mom to these family gatherings, but is wondering, do I introduce her to my brother and help her remember who he is, or is it best to not do that and just kind of have a more harmonious family gathering? While his presence sometimes upsets her, at the same time, she often talks about how much she misses him. So my heart goes out to Ava because this is a really challenging situation. But Colleen, do you have any thoughts for her and her family on how they can navigate this challenging scenario?
I do have a couple of thoughts and a couple of suggestions. So first of all, thank you, Ava, for taking such good care of your mom and being careful to be sure that she is comfortable in the settings you're bringing her to. One suggestion I'd like to make is, I don't know the size of your family gatherings, but I'd recommend you keep them to 3 or 4, maybe 5 people. And one of the reasons for that is, can you imagine being in a room with a bunch of people that kind of look familiar, but you're not sure you remember their names, and you can't keep track of all of the conversations going on around you, and you don't want anyone to think that you don't care or you're not involved, and so your stress level just begins to ramp up. But in a smaller setting where there's just one conversation going on at a time, that anxiety level doesn't increase as much, and so it might be more calming for mother. In those settings, when your brother comes to visit, I'd recommend he says, hello, Mary. I am Robert. You and I have been lifelong friends, and you have been so important to me. And just have a conversation, friend to friend. Again, keeping the anxiety level down. Then when mom says, I miss my son, I miss my son, Ava's response can be, yeah, isn't it great the way he turned his life around? I am so proud of the man he's become. Let's make an appointment to talk with him the next time he's in town. And just keep those feelings positive. When mama's saying I'm missing him, she's missing the nurturing, she's missing the connection. And so just keep it on that positive note, and then just keep the relationship going that way. Those would be my two suggestions that I hope would help.
Those are some great suggestions, Colleen. I like the idea of creating a smaller gathering. Sometimes I suggest, if it's easier to still get the big family together, but then able to have maybe a room off to the side where a few people can go visit at a time, that's also a nice option. And then I really love the advice you gave, and you talked to her probably feeling and desire to still nurture those, people who have been lifelong parents, or a loved one. Those feelings, like we talked about earlier, they don't go away, and so sometimes they might just not be able to express them in the way that they want to, and so it might come out in other ways. So I think as caregivers or people who are supporting an individual living with dementia, sometimes we have to do a little detective work to try to figure out, why are they asking for something or someone. It's probably because they're wanting the comfort that item or person gives to them.
Exactly.
Yeah. So Ava, we hope that helps you in your situation. And again, we just thank you for all the support and love you give to your mom. You sound like you're such a wonderful caregiver. Okay, so we have a few more questions, and this is one that I get very often, Colleen. So I want to see what your suggestions and tips are for Sylvia. She says, how do you help someone with dementia who keeps repeating herself over and over nonstop?
So, who is this a problem for?
That's a good question.
So, mom wants to be connected. She doesn't know what to say. She doesn't know how to find the right words. She doesn't want to be wrong. She doesn't want to make a mistake. So she finds that one thing and she keeps repeating it over and over and over again. Why? Not because that one thing is so important, because the connection is so important. So what I say when I do Dementia Friends is, if it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter. Now, to that primary caregiver who is hearing that same thing over 200 and 300 and 400 times, I get it. That can be very frustrating. And if you can't redirect that person into something else, again, my suggestion is, if they're saying it because they want your attention, give them your attention in another direction, but keep it positive and keep them engaged at their pace and at their level. And hopefully that will begin to redirect. But I understand that it can be annoying to hear the same thing over and over. And maybe then find yourself some dementia friends who have been to Dementia Friends who can understand, and you can go vent to them.
And we also sometimes find taking a step away from the caregiving situation on a kind of a regular basis, what we call respite, can also be helpful. Let somebody else come in and listen to those stories for a couple hours a day or a week. It can give you an opportunity to get that break. I know that's some of the service we provide at home instead is that respite care, but you're right, you could reach out to a family member, a friend, and that's a great way to open up the conversation with a family member or friend about becoming dementia friendly. That could be a great opportunity. I would really love your help to come over, stay with my mom for an hour. Here's a great program that kind of explains dementia so that you can best support her while you're there. I think that's a great conversation starter around this program and a way to help spread the good work that Dementia Friends is doing.
I agree. Another thing we talk about when we do Dementia Friends is to be aware of how your feelings are transmitted. So for instance, we're going to go someplace, we'll leave in about 15 minutes. No, we're going to leave in about 15 minutes. We're going to leave in about 15 minutes. Now, I said the same thing every time, but did you get it that I was getting a little frustrated? Well, so did the person I'm caring for. And so now they're worried about my frustration and they're trying to fight against my frustration while still trying to get their needs met to get to their doctor appointment or their hair appointment. So if we just keep track of our tone of voice, keep our conversation, as the Alzheimer's Association taught me, low and slow, it's almost impossible to sound angry if you keep your voice low and slow. And again, I get it. It can be frustrating, and you need to go find that supportive group of friends where you can express that frustration. But expressing it to your loved one isn't going to help.
That is a great point. Yeah, sometimes the way the disease impacts the brain, sometimes it also takes the person on the receiving end of the message a little longer to interpret it. So if we do talk low and slow, it gives them time to process all the words we're saying. And then if we pause, sometimes what feels uncomfortable to us, maybe 7 to 8 to 9 seconds, it gives them an opportunity to formulate their response and say it back. I've seen family members get really frustrated. Well, they never answer my questions. And I always wondered, do you give them enough time to process it, form a response, and say it? So our words matter. I mean, in everyday conversation, especially when we're communicating with someone living with dementia, and the tone, you're absolutely right, Colleen. Okay, we have another, this is actually a common question. Several people have asked it, so we have to address this one. So the kind of gist of the question is, sometimes a person with dementia can kind of be hiding in plain sight, meaning if they're around us, how do we identify someone living with dementia? Any advice for things that we can look for? And I'm sure that's part of what the Dementia Friends program teaches, what I remember from my training. But Colleen, any thoughts there?
So Dementia Friends really is about extending common courtesy and common respect to people living with dementia. But wouldn't we want to do that even if they didn't? So if you see someone in the grocery store looking at their grocery list and looking at the shelf, why not go over and say, can I help you? How can I help you? Had a clerk at a local retail store saw a woman standing in front of the lettuce, and the clerk was putting items away on the shelf, and when she was done putting out items away on the shelf, the woman was still standing in front of the lettuce. And so she went over to her and said, can I help you? And the woman said, yes, I'm looking for a nail clipper. And the clerk said, oh, it's just over here. I'm heading that way. Let me take you over there. So the woman had just gotten stuck on that one step. She had gotten herself to the store. She had gotten herself a cart. She had gotten in the aisle. She just lost that one step of a nail clipper, finding the symbol for a nail clipper and finding out where to find it in the store. And so did it matter whether that woman had a diagnosis of dementia or if she was just having a bad day? Not really. Just reach out. And so if you're in a room with people who are normally participating in the conversation and they're beginning to pull back from that conversation, engage them and then give them those 7 to 10 seconds that you were talking about to see if they engage so that you can understand them and then support them where they are.
That is a great point. That you're right, everyone deserves, common courtesy and a little help and assistance. And worst case scenario, you go up to the woman and she says, oh, no, I'm just trying to decide what kind of cheese I want. Then at the very least you offered and extended that hand. And, there might not be a time every time that that they need the help, but gosh, if we all just went that extra step, I think the world just would be a better place in general. So thank you for sharing that, Colleen, and we hope that is helpful. Okay, so we have, I just want to address this really quickly. April had written in, she says her husband is living with FTD, which is frontal temporal dementia, and she's just been very thankful for the tips that we have provided. She's had a lot of questions, and our tips on vision was very helpful to her. And April, I just wanted to let you know that there is an association for frontal temporal degeneration that you might find helpful if you haven't discovered this website already. It's a community of people whose loved ones are being impacted by FTD. So I did a live chat a while back with someone from this association, and it was very helpful. So their website is we'll post it in the comments. I apologize. April will make sure we get it to you. It's a little bit of a long website, so I won't repeat it all. But thank you for your comment, April. We're really glad that you joined us today, and thank you for the help and support you're providing to your husband with dementia. It's not always Alzheimer's disease, as we've been talking about. So thank you for tuning in. So we have another question from Carol. She says, how do you talk with the person with dementia when they are sure there is something they can do, let me start over. If you're talking with a person with dementia and they want to do something, as the person supporting them, that they've actually lost their ability to do that activity. What kind of words can you use? How can you still support them? Or maybe can we modify that activity to still engage them in it somehow? Because I know that's probably very challenging and can be discouraging. Some people might not realize that they've lost the ability to do it, and it may be putting them in harm's way. It could be that there is an alternative. Do you see where I'm going with this, Colleen? Any thoughts or comments for Carol in this situation?
So I have two thoughts on this. First of all, if the person thinks they can still fry chicken and they can't fry chicken anymore, that's a matter of personal safety. And so if it's a matter of personal safety, then you need to understand what it is they want. Maybe they're feeling they aren't contributing enough to the family, or maybe they remember that they have always been such a good baker and such a good nutritional support for their family. And so then maybe that caregiver can say, Dad, I would love to learn to do that. Could you be my coach? Let me see how well I can do on my own doing that if you would be my coach. And so now you're taking that person's desire to still contribute and having them help the caregiver. And a person with dementia really still wants to help. They remember that they used to be honored and respected and contributing, and they can still be honored and respected, and we need to find a new way for them to contribute. If, on the other hand, what they want to do is crochet, what they want to do is sing, what they want to do is go for a walk, then it doesn't matter. So what if they can't crochet as well as they used to? So what if they can't, as long as, whatever. If it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter. So if it's just a hobby they had that doesn't put anyone at risk, then help them continue to do that hobby in their way. But again, they just want to feel the way they used to feel when they did that activity.
That's a great point. And I talk with family members sometimes about how they might still be able to do the activity, but they just need it to be broken down into more manageable steps. Or maybe the activity or opportunity to engage just needs to be simplified. Again, still allows them to contribute, but perhaps it's you give them the activity in smaller steps, as opposed to, okay, let's sit down and crochet. Maybe you do need to say, all right, let's get out the equipment, or maybe there's a simpler pattern that you can follow, something of that nature. So I agree that, let's not go automatically to, they can't do it anymore, so we're not going to do it anymore. Is there an opportunity to engage them? And I like your fried chicken example. Maybe they, bread the chicken and then their family member fries it up for them. That way they're still contributing. So there are, I think, a lot of ways that we can still encourage that meaningful engagement and do it in a way that meets them where they're at.
So one of the common problems that a caregiver for a person living with dementia has is that person still wants to drive a car. Now, keep in mind that driving a car is very, very complicated, and they probably couldn't even get in the car, put on their seatbelts, and turn the key in the ignition. So what I have known some families to do is just leave the set of car keys on the counter, saying, yep, Dad, here's the car keys. And it's the car keys for a different car. So Dad still can't get in the, because really he just wants to know that he can, even though he can't. And so I have heard of families doing some deceptive things that will allow their care receiver to still feel like we don't doubt their abilities, but still we cannot allow them to be driving the car.
Yeah, we actually did a public education campaign around seniors and driving. It's not specific to just dementia, it's kind of a broader topic. And so we'll get the link to that and post it in the comments below, because I think there's some great conversation starters, some ideas, kind of like the one you mentioned, Colleen, and then also, you know, alternative ways for them to get around. If they can no longer drive, how can we still make sure that they get to men's coffee or to their faith service or to book club, or still opportunities to engage in the community even if they're not able to drive anymore. But that is a really hot topic. We could spend a whole hour talking about that, Colleen, I think.
There we go.
Oh, we have so many good questions coming in. We're kind of coming down to our last, you know, couple minutes or so, but I'm going to try to fit in a few more because I think that there are some really common questions here. So Lene wants to know, she says, my mom can still dress and bathe herself, but I cannot get her motivated to move more, not even just simple chores. This is really hard and depressing for Lene, and she's wondering how can I help her with this? And I think that we see you know, activities of daily living, bathing, grooming, dressing, those types of activities, people have more challenges with those as they progress through the stages of dementia. So any ideas for Lene, Colleen?
So I would start with the things her mom wants to do. So maybe her mom doesn't want to participate in the activities of daily living, but maybe she'd like to go for a walk in the park. And so then it's today, let's go for a walk in the park. And then the next day say, Mom, you know what? I'd love to go for a walk in the park, but first I need to do this. And then, do you want to help me with this, Mom? And then let's go for a walk. Or maybe it's going to a flower shop or going out for coffee. But start with something that is important to Mom. Maybe it's going to a faith service. And start with the yes, and then begin to build activities leading up to the yes. The thing we've both agreed on is a good thing for Mom.
That's a great tip. We also have a website, helpforalzheimersfamilies.com, that has a lot of great tips on how to make some of those activities of daily living a little more manageable, less stressful, more enticing for your loved ones. So we'll put that website in the comments as well, so you can go to find some additional tips. But we hope that that was helpful. Okay, so trying to get to a few more of these questions here. What is the best way to learn about the kind of dementia that is impacting the individual? Can it be effectively diagnosed by a general practitioner, and what kind of specialist is best qualified?
First of all, thank you for wanting a diagnosis. So much can't happen until you know what kind of dementia this person is living with. And so here in Minnesota, we would recommend a neurologist, and I would assume that's the way it would be nationwide. So the primary physician begins the diagnostic process and then would refer to a neurologist to get a more concrete diagnosis.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Colleen. Your general practitioner is a good place to start, and usually they'll be the one to refer on to a specialist. I know the Alzheimer's Association has a community resource finder. We can put the link to that out on this chat, and they have the community resource finder helps you find all sorts of things: home care, adult day centers, assisted living facilities with memory support, but also they have specialists for diagnosis. So you can go to that website, put in your loved one's zip code, and it will pull up the specialists in your area. So hopefully that is also a helpful resource. But you're absolutely right. The diagnosis is so important. And, you know, someone living with Alzheimer's disease versus someone living with frontal temporal dementia, those are two different types of dementia. They might have some similarities, but the symptoms might be a little bit different. So it is important to get that diagnosis so that you can best support the person in your community or the person that you're caring for. So great question. Okay, let's see here. I think we have time for one last question. All right, do you think there'll ever be a cure for dementia? We'll end with that one. What do you think, Colleen? It's a big question.
So the Alzheimer's, I have two answers for it. The Alzheimer's Association says that the first person to be cured of dementia is living today. That's very powerful to me. I also personally think that what polio was to the last century, Alzheimer's and dementia is to this century. We will figure this out, and it will lead to a much greater understanding of a whole lot of issues.
I like that answer. And I've also heard it said the first person to be cured of Alzheimer's will be in a clinical trial. So there are opportunities for people to participate in research and in clinical trials. I got the good fortune of being able to go to their international research conference, and there's so much happening in research. There's so much progress being made. We might not be seeing it in the mainstream right now. It takes a while for medications to get approved through kind of the drug pipeline, through the FDA, but there is progress being made. So I think families need to know that there is hope, but there's also ways to be a participant in finding that cure. And so there's various ways you can engage in clinical trial research. The Alzheimer's Association has Trial Match, which is a website where you can go and see if you qualify. And so we'll put that link in this chat as well. We have lots of links coming your way. We've been talking about so many great topics. Colleen, wow, I could literally sit here and talk to you all day. This has been so fun to have you on to talk about Dementia Friends. And again, if you want to become a Dementia Friends, you can go to dementiafriendsusa.org. You can find where Dementia Friends is happening in your area, or you can do the online training, and you can make your community more dementia friendly. So Colleen, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Lakeland.
And we all thank you for joining us as well, for taking time out of your day. This live chat again was brought to you by Home Instead Senior Care. We have these caregiver chats every month. Next month, we are going live with one of our very own Home Instead caregivers. She's one of our Caregiver of the Year finalists. So she is an outstanding caregiver. She's going to be talking about how you introduce home care to someone living with dementia and their families, because we know that inviting someone into your home can be a great source of respite, but can also be a little challenging to let somebody new into your home and into that situation. So she's going to share some great tips. That'll be happening October 17th, and we'll be posting the information online, and we'll send out an email with reminders on how and when to join us. But we thank you all so much. Have a wonderful rest of your day. And again, Colleen, thank you for joining us, and I hope you have a great rest of your week. And we'll talk to you all soon. Take care, everyone. Bye.